Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining today's workshop. We have Dr. Harris on the workshop today. We are covering his book, The Unavoidable Responsibilities of a Leader. Today's going to be a great workshop. We're going to cover some things that you may have heard in some traditional leadership courses and some things you haven't. A lot of these, what we're covering today, has to do with the experiences that superintendents such as Dr. Harris has had in public education. So with that being said, I'm going to introduce Dr. Harris, and I'm going to let him take over from here. Thank you, Dr. Harris, for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. All right, Gary, thank you for this opportunity. Thank everyone for coming and listening. Hope I have something that I will say that will be beneficial to everybody. This little book that I wrote, The Unavoidable Responsibilities of a Leader, it really stemmed from me trying to develop my leadership team and give them some insight on some things that they need to make sure that they get better at, because it was just some things that we were struggling with. And so I started having little sessions, and based on those little sessions and going over things, then I began to just write things down. And then someone said, "Hey man, you ought to put that in a book." I said, "Okay, well, let's try this thing." So this is just so what I have is what I've been working with my team on, and things that I thought that would be beneficial to everyone else. So let's get going into this thing. You see my name up as an author. Also, you see Larry Haynes. Larry Haynes is my director of federal programs. Also, he's a local pastor. Also, me and him work well together. And so Dr. Haynes was the writer of the chapter on hope. And so we co-labored this thing together. So it's been great. So let's get going. And so as we get going, I have some questions. I know that when I do this live, certain questions that I have are these ones that's on the PowerPoint on the screen. What are some common responsibilities of a leader? You get your typical answers there, and then from there, I asked the question of which of these can you avoid doing and still be a successful leader, because you can be a leader and avoid doing some of the things. Now, that's not saying that you can be a successful leader, and that's not saying that you will be a leader for long. If you remember, the subtopic of the book is sustaining your leadership. And so the key is not to get into the leadership role and then just fizz out real quickly, but to sustain that thing and to be a part of it for a long time. One of the things that I often say, especially in the superintendent's chair, is staying is harder than leaving, because as the longer you stay in a particular place, the longer you have to keep recreating yourself, creating yourself, because if you go somewhere else, the old things to the old district are new to somebody else. And so with that being said, we want to make sure that we sustain our leadership and that we can maintain that. And I also asked the question, which of these can you not avoid? And so let's get into the chapters of the book. Next slide, please. All right. Okay, so the first chapter in the book is called Leaving a Trail, and that came from really me and Dr. Adrian Johnson was having a conversation, and he has a book called the Realities of Leadership, and he tells this story. He tells this story in there about that his grandmother's back door was right across the field from his back door. So often he could just go out his back door, follow through the trail, and then come into his grandmother's back door. But they had a hard winter one time, and that trail disappeared. And when that trail disappeared, it forced him to be stuck on the porch, and he could not get to his grandmother's home. And so when I talk to leaders, potential leaders, and I talk to aspiring leaders, and I always talk to them about, hey, what do you want to be? What do you want to do? And as we talk, it's so ironic that many of them say, oh, I don't want to be a superintendent. Oh, that's not something I want to do. No, you can have that. I don't want any parts of doing that. And I ask, okay, why? And a lot of times is because of the fear that goes into the unknown because they've never done it before. Most jobs in education, you have somewhat of an ideal of what it's like, and one thing prepares you for the next thing. But whenever you become a superintendent, it's a whole different arena. It's a whole different idea. And so when we talked about leaving a trail, we talked about, if you look in here in the book, it talks about things that we need to do. And the subtopic of that chapter is sharing is caring. And so we should share certain things. One that I talk about is sharing your experiences. That is critical, and I know that has been critical to me in my little brief amount of time as superintendent. Is having some people that I could call and they would share their experience with me. I can remember one, and I talk about it in the book. I had been superintendent, oh man, not even good 6 months, and I had a situation that occurred here in West Orange, where one of our students and their parent had got killed in a hit and run. And so I was aware of the situation. I knew about the situation, and I was like, okay, well, good. We'll figure out how we can do something to be a part of the soothing process for the community. But then I was in Austin and I got a phone call from my director of communications, and Lorraine says, Dr. Harris, are you sitting down? And I said, no, yeah, but what's going on, Lorraine? And she tells me that, okay, the individual that hit the mother and the child was one of my employees. And so that was a whole new learning curve. Okay, what do I do? A million things was going through my mind. I knew the media would be calling. I knew that people would be expecting to hear something from me. Remember, I'm on the superintendent 6 months. I'm saying, okay, what do I say? How do I address this? So the first two calls I made was to my two Dr. Johnsons, Dr. Adrian Johnson and Dr. Steve Johnson, to, hey guys, this is a situation that I'm in. Not that their situation will be exactly like my situation, but they have experienced some form of a situation, so they could give me advice on how to go about doing things. And so we need to share our experiences. That's very important, because many of the things that we do is based on the experiences that we have. So share those things. Another thing that I talk about in the book is sharing your emotional state. Now, this right here was one that I gathered along the way. It's one of those ones, guys, that from sitting in this chair as superintendent, it's a lonely seat within your community and within your district, because typically there's only one superintendent in the community, and we know there's only one in the district. So and you have to always be on, and you have to always look a certain way, and you have to always present yourself in a certain way, and you oftentimes you cannot allow your emotions to be shown. And sometimes, and I talk about it in the book, sometimes you need somebody that you can bounce things off of, and you need somebody that you can talk to, and you need to sometimes hear from other people and other superintendents that, okay, hey, it's okay to feel that way. It's okay to have that emotional feeling at that time. I know one of the things that I was struggling with was, working in a highly economically disadvantaged district that struggles with scores. And man, I was pushing all the right buttons, I thought, and we was growing and we was moving, and things were looking like they were great um, in all the areas except for accountability. And it seemed like we just could not move in the area of accountability. So had this feeling of, okay, am I doing the right thing? I started questioning some of my decisions. I started questioning some of my practices. And so when we're working with other leaders and other aspiring leaders, it's nothing wrong with sharing your emotional state, sharing it, that it's okay to feel a certain way, and you're not crazy for feeling that way, and you're not less a professional for feeling that way, because we all have emotions. And so share those things. And so I begin to share my emotional state with certain ones that would want to know and want to hear, because it makes them feel good. It makes them feel better. And then honestly, sometimes you just need to know you're not crazy, for feeling a certain way. And I know as a superintendent, I know I'm not the I know other superintendents on this call, you sit and think, man, should I be thinking this way, or should I be feeling this way? But it's good to know that, what, I'm not the only one in some cases. Another thing that in the book, when you leave a trail, I talk about sharing your time. Time is one of the things that I know as a superintendent, many of us know, we don't have much of. Seem like there's not enough time in a day. Not enough time in a day. I know. Sorry, guys, my light goes out if I sit still for too long. But you don't have enough time in a day. It's always moving. You seem like you have a list. I know I have a list of things on my calendar, and it seems like I can't get them all done on there. But what I've learned is that you've got to figure out ways to share your time with inspiring leaders. And what I've done here at West Orange, what we've developed an inspiring leadership academy for principals, for those who are desiring to be principals, and for those who are desiring to be superintendents. And we meet I meet once a month with them. And with the principals, what we do is what we've designed a 10-month course for them to go through. And what we do, we try to give them every aspect of the role of a principal and what at certain parts of the year. And during those meetings, I go in at the beginning of every meeting, and at the beginning of every meeting, I open myself up to the group. One, I give an overview of what we're going to be talking about. So, for example, during hiring season or during contract season, HR director will come and she would do her spiel. And what I'll do is I'll give them examples of different things that I have to deal with as a superintendent when it comes to HR. But at every one of the meetings, I always ask, okay, hey, here you go. Any question? All right, what do you need to know? What are you thinking about? What's going through your mind? Any questions? You have access to the superintendent. Ask me any question you want to ask. Okay, and we lay the groundwork of, okay, there's certain things that we can talk about and certain things I can't talk about, but I'll answer any question that you may have. Another thing that I do, and I got this from John Maxwell, is I have lunch and learns. And so I will let aspiring superintendents or aspiring principals, aspiring leaders that want to have lunch with me, we'll sit down and we'll have lunch, and they can pick my brain and we can work through things, and we can look at their resume. We can talk about their resume. We can talk about all the things that goes into moving into a new leadership role, and how should my family be affected with these things? And how does Dr. Harris, how is it that you have your children in the same district as you and your superintendent? How does your family affect? How does it affect your family? How does it affect your daughter and your son? Just different aspects like that. So giving them time, and that's very, very important. I know one of the most frustrating things to me, when I first became superintendent was, everybody says, "Hey man, if you need anything, give me a call. Anything, give me a call." But as soon as you call, they don't answer. Okay, they're so busy. So one of the things I've always tried to commit myself to doing is making sure that I share my time and be accessible with them. Also, next I talk about sharing in the book, on the chapter of leaving a trail. We talk about sharing your resources, and this doesn't mean your money. But if you got money, you can give it to them. You can you can help them out with the need a little bit. But at the end of the day, that's not what it's all about. Two things I talk about in the book are your intellectual capital and your political capital. Um, One of the things that I learned as superintendent, and most of you guys know, that first year as superintendent, you really don't know what you don't know. You don't know what you don't know. You're like, okay, I've gotten this job. I'm sitting this job. I've gone through. I got my certification. I've gotten all this thing. I've gone through all the classes. Okay, now I'm in the chair. Okay, the thing that really bothered me was, okay, what don't I know? What is going to catch me off guard? What is going to catch me off guard? I could not wait until that first year was over, because now I've done everything at least one time, at least one time. Because when you come into the job, you really you know what you've experienced, you know what you've heard, and you know what you've been told. And everything you need to know is not in the binder, and everything you need to know is not in the book. And so it's great to have other superintendents or other leaders that you can go and talk to, that they can share their intellectual knowledge with you and their intellectual capital with you, so you don't make mistakes. You don't make mistakes that could have been avoided. I know I probably got on some of my colleagues' nerves that first year, because I called and I called and I called and I called. And so now that I'm in a position where I've been doing this thing almost 9 years, now I like to share my intellectual capital to help somebody else along the way. And then the thing I talk about also in the book is political capital. That's that capital you've gained within the organization, capital you've gained with the community, capital you've gained within the profession. It's those relationships you built with others. And what I've learned is, we can, with our political capital, when we share that with those aspiring leaders, what ends up happening is it gives them a little bit more credibility. You can help them get through certain doors that they normally will not get through, if you don't co-sign it. You can through your networks and through your things that your relationships, you can help them in situations that normally they would not be able to be a part of. So I believe it's very important that we share that political capital. Now, you have to be careful with that, because, and I tell the ones that I'm sharing mine with, I tell them, I said, now listen, I only have so much to burn, and I can't allow you to burn it all up. So if I use my political capital to help you, you need to make sure you take full advantage of that, and remember that you are a representation of me. So whenever you go that route, so that's one of the things that I talk about, and that's chapter one, leaving a trail. Next slide, please. The next chapter is responsible communication, and the subtitle there is leaders' words initiate action. No good leader can be careless with their communication. No good leader can be careless with the communication. You've got to be intentional. You have to be calculated. You have to make sure that you understand two things. One is your words. Your words are powerful, and that was something I had to get used to as a superintendent. The power of my words, the power of what I say, because when you say something, it causes people to start doing something, either positive or negative, but they're going to start doing something because your words have power. For example, one of the things that I had to get used to is I like to walk around the campuses, and I walk the campuses. I'm walking the campuses, and I'm looking at everything, and I would see things that needed to be addressed. And what I would do is I pick up the phone. I would call my maintenance director if I see facility things that need to be addressed, and I would give him a call, and I would say, "Hey, Greg, hey, go check. Hey, we got this that I'm seeing," and the thing is, I didn't want Greg to go fix that right now. I didn't want him to go send anybody to go do that right now. All I was doing is making him aware of it. But because of the power of my words, he perceived if I'm calling him uh, to talk to him about something, then therefore it needs to be fixed and done right now. And so he would take off and call people, move people, take people off other jobs and send them over there for it to be done immediately. And so I finally figured out, hey, this my words have power. So let me when I begin this conversation, I start saying, hey, Greg, I'm seeing this. You don't have to do anything about it. Just put it on your list to get it done whenever you get an opportunity to. And we'll talk about the importance of clarity in a minute, and I'll come back to that conversation. And then another thing that I had to work on, and there's some people on the call that know me. You guys know I think out loud, so I'm one of those ones. I'll be walking and I'll just be thinking. I'll be thinking out loud. I'll be in a meeting and we'll be talking about something, and I'll be thinking out loud. I'll be processing it through out loud, not understanding that as I'm processing things through out loud, that my team, they were taking what I was saying and they're ready to go do something with it. And often, and I talk about in the book that we would be in a meeting and I'll be thinking out loud, and then they would go and run and do something about it and they're going in a totally different direction than I really wanted to go. And then when I would ask them, hey man, why'd you do this? Well, Dr. Harris, you said this, and this in the meeting. And then I said, oh no, I was just thinking out loud. And so I had to start say, hey guys, I'm just thinking out loud. Let's not go do anything about it. Let's work together. So your words are powerful, and so when you are being responsible with your communication, you understand those things, and you understand that okay, I've got to make sure that my words are not taken out of context. Also, I got to make sure that my words don't send the wrong message. And so then that leads me to the next thing. The next thing on the responsible communication is the importance of clarity. From our seats and from a leader's seat, you have got to be clear. Clarity is vital. It is important. And if you can see on the slide that I say lack of clarity can cost an organization time, money, and reputation. If you're not clear on those things, on what you're trying to convey, you're not clear on your expectation, it will cost you time, it will cost you money, and you will cost you in some areas, it can cost the district reputation and also cost your reputation. And so you have to be clear. One of the examples I talk about in the book is about whenever COVID hit, and everybody was going crazy, and everything was going up. Everybody was going in a million different directions, but also on top of COVID, you remember we had the school shootings. So you have COVID and you have school shootings and all this going on. And so they came out with these metal detectors that could take the temperature. And so I said, hey man, let's kill two birds with one stone. I said we could get this and it could help us with school safety. Uh, and also we could take temperatures. So and I knew my community somewhat had issues with metal detectors, um, but then I could convey it as, hey, this helps us real get that temperature checked and everybody can stay safe. So I mentioned it, and I mentioned it in passing to my technology director who would be handling that, and my chief of police. And I mentioned it, and I went on. And so about a month went by, and I said, "Hey guys, when are we going to get those metal detectors in place?" And they looked at me like a deer in headlights, and said, "What are you talking about, Dr. Harris? We're gonna get to it. I know you want, but we're gonna get to them." But because I wasn't clear on the urgency of the matter, it cost us time to get those in place. So they finally figured it out when I looked at them and said, "Okay, so we're just going to wait for someone to just come into the building and shoot up everybody before we get them, and then we'll get them." And then they're like, "Okay, we got it, we figured it out." So sometimes you got to be more direct, but the main thing you have to be clear on your expectations. I know most of us as superintendents, we put in place a performance incentive here, and you guys know as well as I know, when you attach things to money, you've got to make sure that you are very, very, very clear, because people will find every hole in it, and people will find every way around it. People will find every way to manipulate it. And so when we communicated this thing, it took us about 6 months to get it exactly the way we wanted it before we even put it out there to the staff, because we wanted to make sure we covered every loophole. And even with that, we still found some people got around. So you want to be clear. All right, next slide, please. Responsible communication is also appropriate messaging. This year is really just has to do with just communication 101. Most of you guys 101, you guys know about this. You guys understand this, but I had to learn this, and I had to work through these things, making sure my tone was right, make sure my tone was right. I remember most of y'all, you guys know me. I'm a passionate guy. If I'm passionate about something, I'm passionate about it. My voice may raise. I may get animated, but don't mean I'm mad about anything. I'm just animated. I'm just passionate about it. I remember talking to my high school principal one time about something, and I was just going on and on and on. And man, I was animated, and I was going. And next thing I know, she started crying. And I'm looking up, what you crying for? And she thought I was mad at her, and that I had a problem. And I really didn't have a problem. I was just passionate about what I was saying. So I had to start really working on, hey, check your tone, check your tone. And then body language. You guys know you know that most of your communication comes from your body language. And then timing is everything. Timing is everything. Me and my communication director worked really, really hard with timing on when to put certain things out, when to say certain things. Because if you put it out at the wrong timing, no matter how good your effort was to communicate this thing, if the timing is wrong, it will cause a problem. And then wording, making sure you choose the correct words, and making sure that situation I was talking about with chapter one, when we had the situation where the family the family had died. Me and Lorraine, my former communication director, we took about 3 hours to make sure that the wording was right before we released anything, because we was trying to think through everything and we didn't want to send the wrong message. So making sure the wording is correct. And then the method. You guys know, in this world that we live in now, this text world, everybody want to send a text, and everything either is in text or it's in email because it's quicker and all of that stuff. But some messages need to be face to face. All right, because that body language is not involved in a text. Tone can be misrepresented in a text. Uh, all of those things can be messed up when you do it in a text. So you have to know what's the appropriate method for this situation. There's some things that I did videos for here, instead of sending an email, especially during COVID and trying to convey vaccinations, the importance of vaccination, trying to convey the importance of wearing masks and those types. Yes, we put a lot of things in writing and we convey, but there were some I did videos because I wanted to convey it verbally, but not only verbally, but also they could see me, and I could connect. I could work on connecting with them. So some things you just got to figure out. Okay, what's the appropriate method that I need to communicate? So, and that's all a part of being responsible with your communication. And because sometimes we can be careless, trying to do something so fast, trying to get something out, not really giving this message the value and respect that is needed, uh, uh, thinking that it minimizing the situation. So you just got to make sure that you take the time to make sure that you communicate in a responsible fashion. All right, next slide. I'm trying to watch my time also. Okay, so this right here, I love this part of the book. You really could do a workshop on just this part of the book, nurturing followers. Nurturing followers. And this part of the book really came from my brother, from a conversation that I had with my brother. My brother, and I talk about it in the book. My brother is a landscaper. My brother, he can, man, him and his wife have a landscaping company, and they're wonderful with all of that stuff. I do not have a green thumb. I can't grow anything. Anything that I put in the ground is going to die. And so I remember having a conversation with my brother, and I said, his name is Harold. I said, Harold, I said, man, I said, why is it that your plants always come out so pretty, and everything's always nice? I said, man, I get them. I get the plants. I get this. I read all the directions. I do it the way they say do it and all that stuff. I said, but my stuff never works. It's always my plants always die. And he looked at me and he said, Rick, you don't value the seed. I said, well, what do you mean? He said, you don't value the seed. He said, you just drop it in the ground. You don't spend no time. You just say, okay, this is where you're gonna put it. He said, if you notice, when I get ready to plant plants in your flower bed, you notice how, you probably don't pay attention how much I walk around, I look, I move stuff around, I look at what's there, I spend a lot of time. He said, I'm really just looking it all over to make sure that I find the most productive place to plant the seed. I want to make sure that when I put it in the ground, it's in a place that is going to be a productive place. It's going to prosper. It's going to be able to grow. He said, so first thing I do is I really look at and find the place. And so when so to bring that to leadership, whenever whenever you are nurturing your followers, and whenever you are bringing new people on the team, you need to make sure you find the most productive place to plant them. Make sure that you put them in a place where they're going to prosper. Now, as the leader, you're responsible for that. Uh, Everybody that wants a particular place in the organization does not belong in that place. And a lot of times they don't even realize that that's not the best place for them. That's just the place that they want. And so so you really got to really pay attention to putting people in these places. Now, 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 what I've learned also from my brother is to prepare the soil to receive the seed. My brother talks about how once he finds the place that he want to plant it, then he goes through this whole process of cultivating and working with the soil and making sure the soil is ready to receive the seed. He just don't drop it in the ground. He say, I make sure I go through it, I cultivate it, I work it. All right. I take everything out. I take all the rocks out away from that area. He said, then once I get it like I like it, then I let it just rest for a week or so. All right, to see what's in there that I may have missed that's going to be toxic to the seed, and then I go back through and I peel it out. And so I say that to say this: when I think about leadership, do we prepare the environment by which we're going to place the person in? A person can be a great employee. A person could be a great asset, but we put them in the wrong environment. And most of the time, we pretty much know the environment that we're putting them in if we really evaluate it and we really look at it. Uh, if it's if it's a toxic environment. If that's a hard place for someone to work. You know that you know what type of people are on that campus, and so or within an organization. So you have to really look at that, and you have to say, okay, um, do I need to do a lot more work with this department or with this campus prior to putting them in that place, all right, for them to be successful? And then once you plant them in there, then you have to monitor progress more frequently when you first planted. When I had to explain this to one of my new principals, I knew I knew I had put on a tough campus. I knew I had, and we had tried our best to get everything ready before we placed her on that campus, and we did a lot of groundwork. But uh, that first year, I spent a lot of time uh, checking in. I spent a lot of time monitoring. I spent a lot of time working with her, and she thought I was. And I had to explain to her because she thought I was trying to micromanage her. And I had to tell her, no, 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 no. I'm just making sure that I'm monitoring to make sure if you need anything, to make sure that I can see your blind spots because we all have blind spots. And so I had to just kind of let her know what I was doing. And then the next thing is, you see, provide the proper nutrients for growth. By me being around, by me monitoring often, also they gave me the ability to see what she needed to enhance her growth and to keep moving her forward. And then the next thing, be patient with the seed. Now, in this environment by which we are in now, it takes a lot. A lot of times, we don't have the patience that we need because of all the accountability that we got to get. We got to get this system turned around right now. We got to get this campus turned right now. We got to get this benefit. We got to get this progress right now. But you know, you got to be patient with it. If you plant a seed, in the ground today, you're not going to get a flower tomorrow. You know, you have to be patient with it. And then the last thing with this whole nurturing followers is I talk about you have to be willing to change the environment if necessary. So at the end of the day, if you value the seed enough, you got to be willing to sometimes move the seed if you have to move the seed to save the seed. And that's a hard decision sometimes, but you have got to be willing to make those decisions. Every time you move, and I've learned this, every time you make a move with someone in the organization is not always a negative move. Sometimes it may be perceived as a negative move, but it's not as a negative move. They just may not be in the right seat at that time, and that seat may not be the right fit for them. And so you've got to be willing to make that move and make that adjustment. Next slide, please. All right, and this is a chapter that Dr. Haynes wrote on providing hope, the gift that keeps on giving. I was so happy he wrote this. Actually, Dr. Nana LeBlanc was supposed to write it. At that time, she's retired now. She was my deputy superintendent, but she was so busy with doing everything that she could not write it. So I got him to write it because hope is something that we have as leaders have got to be always peddling. Got to be always peddling. And in the book, you'll see these. I'm gonna go through these quickly because I'm pressed up on time. In the book, you'll see what's known as the perspective of hope. One of the things as the leader is you've got to be able to give the people a different perspective. I'm not saying give the people a fairy tale or give the people a lie. The truth is the truth, but at the same time, you have got to be able to communicate the other side. Every negative situation, if you look at it long enough, you can find a positive. Okay, and so you've got to be able to convey that. And whenever you can give someone hope, you give somebody a different perspective to whatever situation that they're going through. Especially right now, man, with the teacher shortage and with children. Let me say it this way: with parents not being the same as parents once was. So you're dealing with a different type of student. You're dealing with a different type of kid. And so teachers are going through and they have to deal with some tough stuff. And so you've got to be able to communicate hope and give them a different perspective, to see beyond what they're seeing every day. And so that's one of the things you have to do. You got to understand the power of hope. The power of hope. You know, hope can keep you going. Hope can keep you going. Yeah. One of the things that will kill a person's dream is if they feel as though they're hopeless. But if you can keep hope alive, then hope has power to keep me moving toward what I'm trying to do, and to keep me moving beyond what I'm seeing every day. Now, there's a portion that talks about hope without hands. Now, that means, okay, yeah, we can say a whole lot, but saying a whole lot means nothing if you're not doing a whole lot. And so you have got to also be able to put legs on those hope, on that hope. We got to also be able to give that hope hands. all right, to be able to work and to be able to do some things. So look in that area of the book and you'll see that. And then also milestones. I've learned, and you'll learn, you got to celebrate the smallest of victories and make the smallest of victories a milestone. You know, you're going to have enough losing battles along the way. Every time you get whatever victory, you want to make sure that you celebrate that, and you celebrate that with your team. You celebrate that with your staff, all right, and make a big deal of it, because it will keep you moving toward that larger goal that you're going after. Then you got to be able to identify snipers of your hope. You all have them. You all have them. We all have those people that you all have those people that know that it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how pretty things are. They're gonna find something wrong with it. They're gonna always be complaining. My grandma used to say it like she used to tell me and my brother and sister, "You're crying with a loaf of bread under your arm." Be thankful for what you have instead of always finding the negative part of everything. All right. You have those people that are snipers. They look for opportunity to put people's hope out. And so you got to identify those people. You got to identify those people. And then stories of hope. Share your stories. Share your stories. Share your stories. I've learned that stories of hope help people move forward, and so share those stories. Next slide. All right, then the last chapter. Then we close out this last chapter in the book with managing crisis. A leader's true character is shown, not heard, during a crisis. And I have had to deal with my share of crisis more than I would have volunteered to be able to deal with. Just give you a little bit of perspective. I got the job here in 2015. Yeah, 2015. We got the job in April of 2015. I told you the one situation about the family they got killed. Then we had to deal with Hurricane Harvey, and a lot of Houston got a lot of the news media about Hurricane Harvey. But the truth of the matter is, I'm not taking anything away from Houston, but the truth of the matter is, no one received more water than Orange. We got 63 inches of water in 3 days. People woke up, went to bed, and everything was fine, and stepped out of their beds to go to the restroom, and they were standing in knee-deep water. There were people that when the National Guard was coming to get them, they had alligators circling the houses. So we had Harvey. We had to deal with Harvey. Then we had to deal with Tropical Storm Imelda. Then we got trying to get them in order. Then we got Hurricane Laura. We got Laura, and then we got Beta, that has not talked about that much. Tropical Storm, we got Beta. So then we got the ice storm, like everybody else got. Then we got COVID, and Laura and COVID was all together. So we were dealing with COVID. We were dealing with COVID, and then we got a hurricane. And so I've had my share of dealing with crisis, and it wasn't fun, but I learned from it. And so I'll just say these three things, and we'll close. When dealing with crisis, I learned the first thing you have to do is you have to be able to show compassion, and you have to be able to convey compassion to your followers. You have to convey compassion to the community. One of the things that I wanted to make sure during those hurricanes was that hey, I feel what you feel, and I'm in here with you. Even though every hurricane I left, I left the city. I left the city. Um, uh, when they said leave, hey, I dismissed school. I got everybody gone, and I left, and I came back. I left, but I came back. But I wanted to convey that, I had a home here. Um, I had a home here. I had to. So what I did, I went about and I helped with mucking people's houses out. And if you don't know what mucking houses out means, that means you go in and you got to clean out all the mud and all the stuff that's come in people's houses, and then make sure that then you have to cut the sheetrock so high, uh, and and dry the house out. So I was in there, I was in there with them to do that. And then uh, we were passionate about making sure that we got the district back up and running quickly, as quick as possible, because we wanted to get the students back in the buildings so parents could get work done while we took care of the children. Also, we opened up our facility for parents and families to use our facilities and do those things. Y'all, everybody know we're a big football thing down in West Orange. We love football, and everybody loves football. One of the things we got back to playing and practices as soon as possible. Now, everybody thought that it was all about football. Yeah, football. But no, that was an opportunity where we could get our kids up to the school so they can get a good hot shower, and also we could feed them. We could feed them, and then we had a when we was able to play our first game, we had a game that we just let everybody come in free. But not only let everybody come in free, we had a tailgate where we was feeding people hot meals, at that time. So you want to show, during a crisis, you want to show compassion. And then the next thing is you got to show direction. At the end of the day, everybody's looking to you for direction. Okay. All right. And so you have got to be able to convey a direction toward a sense of familiar territory. One of the reasons why that we got back to playing football was because that was familiar territory. Every Friday night here in West Orange, there was a certain place that everybody is going to be. Especially during that time, we had just won one state championship, and we was on the process of winning another state championship, and in the process of going to state again. And so there was a sense of familiarity that we wanted to make sure that we could convey to the people. We're going in that direction, and then you got to understand also, now from this direction, the praise and the problems are going to be at your feet. Okay, there are going to be some things that you're going to do great, and there are going to be some things that you're not going to do so great. But you got to be ready to own both of them. You can't want the praise and run away from the problems. Okay, you just got to know that. And then this was one that I had to learn also. You want to move quickly, but not rushed. All right. There are things that you got to be diligent about making decisions and diligent about doing what needs to be done, but you don't need to rush yourself on things. Move quickly, but don't be in a fashion of rush. Okay. Make sure you can gather information and gather all the information well so you can make a appropriate decision. And then you got to communicate that direction. And you got to communicate that direction often. And so in the book, I talk about how we went about that process of communicating. communicating often and timely, and make sure you have all the information set first before you communicate anything out. And then always have a caveat in whatever you communicate with the direction that situations may cause certain things to change in our direction. So it just takes time, and that goes back to that responsible communication piece that we talked about. And then the last thing is composure. You got to be composed in the middle of a crisis. If the leader is running around with their hair on fire, everybody else is going to be running around with their hair on fire. Okay, you've got to be composed. You got to be able to think. You got to the art of great leadership is everything is chaotic and everything is difficult, but you make it look easy. You make it look easy. The funny thing is my little daughter, when we got here, she was a third grader, and my daughter thought all that her daddy did was have meetings and eat at meetings. That's all you do, daddy. Go eat at meetings. That's all you do. You don't do anything else but just eat at meetings. All I see you do is eat at meetings. That's all you talk about. Okay, but there's other things that I'm doing. Okay, but at the same time, that's the art of making it look easy, even though it is difficult. You're spinning a million plates, you're spinning 5, 6, 7 plates at one time, but the key is spinning them all and not dropping a one. Okay, and so now, how do you do that? You can't do it unless you have a team you can trust. I will put my team up against anybody. Okay, I have a great team. And my team, and when COVID hit, my team flipped the whole education process in while we was on spring break. Okay, we just we through Zoom through we didn't have Zoom at that time. We didn't know anything about Zoom that well. We just was conference calls, and we all and they all flipped it, got it all right and ready. By the time the commissioner said we couldn't go back to school, it was all going online. They had everything already laid out in place by the end of the week. That's how good my team is. All right, and so I trust them to get it done, to get it done, and then trust your training of your team. If you've trained them right, you train them to be prepared for a crisis. You've trained them to do what they need to do in the middle in this situation. Trust that they're going to get that done. Now, trust but verify. Okay, but trust that they're going to get that done. Then next thing is you can stay composed when you have a network to tap into, like you people that's on this call. Some of you people that's on this call, um, people you can call. All right, have a network that you can call that can help give you advice and talk you through certain situations that you can bounce things off of. Okay, and those who've gone through certain crises, back to chapter one, leaving the trail, gone through certain things, and then you have this network that you can work with that will help you at least appear as though you are composed in the middle of that crisis. And then not everybody does this last thing, and I don't. Most of you guys know I'm a pastor. I'm a pastor, so my number one thing is that I can be composed. I trust God. All right, and I'm not going to get preachy on that, but I'm just going to say it this way. Whether it's God or whatever your higher being is, you got to have somebody to trust that's beyond you, and that's what I do. So, next slide. I think that's everything. Guys, thank y'all for your time. Thank you for spending time. Thank you for coming. I hope it helps somebody. And I open up for any questions that anybody may have, because there's a lot in the book that I didn't go into, but it's there for you to enjoy. Gary?
Absolutely. Yeah, if you have questions right there in the Q&A feature of the chat box, we have a few minutes. We can answer some questions. Just feel free. We got the Q&A box there right there at the bottom of your screen. We'll just give it a minute here and see if there's any questions. Okay. Well, we don't see any questions coming in right now. Dr. Harris, he's at West Orange Cove Consolidated ISD. Feel free to reach out to him if you have any questions about today's workshop, or if you need a resource from a leadership perspective, just to ask questions from. Highly recommend you get a copy of his book, The Unavoidable Responsibility of a Leader. It's on Amazon. And also, please feel free to tune in to the Educational Leadership Podcast. We're on Spotify and other platforms. We have a lot of other great content that has been put out by school superintendents around Texas, Oklahoma, and we're expanding throughout the U.S. So we have over 60 episodes on the podcast. And if you do have a book that you've published, if you're a superintendent and you do have a book, happy to talk with you as well about providing a workshop. And Dr. Harris, thank you for your time today. Thank you for the great content you provided around leadership, and just thank everybody else for attending today's workshop.
Thank you so much for having me. Y'all have a great rest of the day.